Way too long. Awesome. Thank you, sir. You're the man.
Yeah,
You just want to see that?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, hello everyone. That usually gets people's attention. Thank you. Well, good evening and welcome to today's speaker series event of the Center for Business GIS and Spatial Analysis. My name is Avijit Sarkar. I'm a faculty member in the School of Business and I'm presently director of the center. I want to take a moment to briefly introduce the center to you. The center was founded within the School of Business at the University of Redlands in the summer of 2011, and it seeks to stimulate, support, and integrate spatial thinking and GIS throughout the School of Business programs, and expand research and scholarship in GIS and spatial analysis among faculty members. I have a couple of welcoming remarks for all of you. Before I introduce the speaker today, I wanted to introduce a couple of people in the audience. We are privileged to have with us Dr. Stephen Moore right here, the university's Director of Spatial Studies. Steve is the leader of all the spatial endeavors, if you may, overall on campus. I want to take a moment to extend a warm greeting to all of you for attending tonight's event. I see several colleagues in the faculty from the administration, colleagues from the University Center for Spatial Studies. David Smith was here a moment ago, it's right there. And last but not the least, I see several students in the audience today, which is terrific. A specific word about a cohort of undergraduate School of Business students who are here tonight participating in this event as part of their coursework. I want to welcome all of you, especially the students, and trust that you'll have an enriching experience. Tonight's event is being streamed live for the benefit of students and members of the university community who couldn't be here today. So in addition to extending a warm welcome to all of you, I would like to welcome the virtual audience as well. And last order of business before I introduce our speaker, I would like to acknowledge two first-class, first-rate individuals. I don't see Ms. Karen Crocker, who is right at the back. She's probably signing people in. She's project specialist in the School of Business and she extensively supports the center. She has transitioned into this position recently and has a lot on her plate. I know that for a fact. So I am especially thankful to you, Karen. Secondly, Jessica Rosales, where is Jessica? At the back, is graduate student assistant for the Center for Business GIS and Spatial Analysis, and she works closely with me and Karen and helps us prepare for these events. So Jessica, thank you to you as well. So without further ado, allow me to introduce our speaker tonight, Mr. Milton Ospina. Mr. Ospina has been actively involved in the GIS industry since the late 1980s. He spent 15 years actually working right here in Redlands at Esri as a software instructor and industry marketing manager. Mr. Ospina joined here, which is a company that used to be formerly known as Navtech. He has lots of good stories about that, which is now a Nokia business in 2008 as business development manager. His focus has been on marketing and selling HERE's GIS data solutions to the enterprise and in supporting Esri and their customers worldwide. Mr. Ospina is the author of several books that have been published in the Esri press. He is a frequent U.S. and international speaker on the use of GIS for spatial planning, for urban planning, community development, and the critical role that HERE map content plays in the development of enterprise GIS systems. Mr. Ospina has a master's degree in community and regional planning from the University of New Mexico. Tonight, he's going to be talking on the criticality of GIS basemaps and how the quality of basemaps make a difference in the GIS marketplace. So please join me in welcoming our speaker, Milton Usfin. Thank you.
So, good evening. It's great to be here. It's great to be here. You're supposed to laugh. It's a joke. Here. Anyway. Oh, this is being recorded live, so I hope my boss is now watching. Anyway, it is nice to be here. I worked for Esri for 15 years, lived in Redlands for many years, and my kids spent a lot of time on this campus, so I'm very familiar with the area. It was great to see Rasul this evening because I was participated with the IRB for about 7 years or so before I moved to Colorado. So anyway, it's wonderful. Thank you very much for inviting me, Avijit and Jim. So we're going to, this is a very interesting topic, but I like to introduce it the following way. How many of you have a car? Okay, of those of you who have a car, how many of you talk to your friends about how cool your car is? Maybe you're really proud of your car. You talk about maybe it's a brand new car, that's good. How many of you talk to your friends and family about a nice trip you did somewhere to the mountains with your car? Obviously the car came along, but you talk about that, right? Nice trips, all right. I just described GIS, right? Now, how many of you talk to your friends and family about the type of gasoline you put in your car? Nobody. That's where I come in. So I'm a data company. I'm the gas that makes the car, which is your GIS, go places, which are your applications. So data, for the most part, is a boring topic. So I'll try to make it a little fun, because without the gasoline, you're not going to go anywhere. You may have the best car in the world, the best GIS in the world, you may have the best ideas for applications, but if you don't have the right data and good quality data, you're not going to go anywhere. Can we all agree on that? Am I right? Okay. So let's talk about that. So let me introduce a little bit about my company. So we're formerly known as Navtech. Most people know us as Navtech. We've been in the mapping business for 30 years. And if you see, if you move from the left to the right, you see we got the first European map in an in-vehicle navigation system. We got the first map on an online portal. We've done a lot of firsts throughout the years. One thing that I'm going to point out is that you will see map all throughout the entire presentation. Very few times I will refer to GIS, and that's because my company has chosen to call it map. Mostly because a lot of the business that we do is a consumer business. We are very strong in the automotive industry. Pretty much 4 out of 5 vehicles that have an in-vehicle navigation system have a Navtech map. So when people buy cars and things, they don't say, I want a GIS system. No, they want a map. So that's what, when I call in about map, you can do the mental translation and think of it as a GIS database, right? So we were bought by Nokia about 7 years ago. A couple of years ago, we acquired a great company called Earthmine, and we continue to do a lot of acquisitions. We're a very innovative company, and I think you'll see that throughout the presentation. So we are 6,000 employees. We work in 55 different countries. And I was talking to my colleagues here at the table that I, for example, have one of the longest commutes in my company, which is from upstairs to downstairs in my office. My town, I live in Colorado, and every year they have a bike to work. So obviously I can't bike from upstairs to downstairs, but I do get on my bike and I do a 10-mile loop, and I eat about 5 or 6 breakfasts because all the restaurants that are offering breakfast to people who bike to work. So I feel like I'm cheating, but at least I tried. My company is very interesting in the fact that I work from home. I live in Colorado. It's about 30 or 40 of us in Colorado. I only know one other person. And there is a good reason for that. And that is because a lot of those 6,000 employees are actually people who are driving the roads on cars like the one you saw on the screen before the presentation. So we are probably the only, we are actually the only last major worldwide mapping company that continues to drive the roads in order to get the most accurate map. And there's a good reason for that, and I'll talk about that later. So we're passionate about making maps. Again, maps comes up. We think we have a great vision for what maps can do and how they can improve our lives and improve our businesses and business decisions. If you were to walk away from the presentation today, this is the slide that I'd like you to remember. These 4 points. We got technology leadership. We got probably one of the best technologies out there. We got a lot of patents. We have created a lot of wonderful technology and techniques and processes to create the best GIS database in the world. We got the best breed of automation. There is no way that we could process the terabytes of data that we collect every day. Each one of those cars on the left over there is collecting mobile LiDAR, terrestrial LiDAR, some people call it, video and panoramic imagery. And on one day, each one of them collects 1 terabyte of data, which is then shipped to Fargo or India, whatever the processing facility is going to be. So there is no way that we could manually process that amount of data to create great maps. So we do a lot of innovative automation, and I'll show you a little bit of that. The third one is perhaps one of the most important items when it comes to building databases or building layers of information and good quality data, and it's the consistent specification. We are in a world today where you're not dealing with your local shop down the street. We're still dealing with them, but a lot of them are part of a major corporation. You're dealing with a major financial institution or insurance company or a car company. They're building map solutions, GIS solutions all over the world. The last thing they want is to have a map of the US that is formatted one way, and then they go to China and it's a different map, and they go to Chile and it's a different map, and Italy is a different type of schema. So a single global specification has made us very competitive in the marketplace. And then the last one is field operations with a local insight. So I mentioned how I work from home. I'm a sales, business development, marketing guy, but a lot of those guys are driving actually their cars, and we got folks in the organization that own their own piece of the map. So there is somebody in northern Colorado, there's somebody around this area that works for here, and he or she owns that map. And what I mean by that is that that person is always paying attention to changes in the geography. Name of businesses change, names of streets change, the streets get closed, new streets are open, maybe a new highway is open, a new interchange or something like that. So those guys, their responsibility is to be in constant touch with the DOTs, the planning departments, and make sure that all the changes that are occurring are going into the map. So that's a big differentiator as well. We got maps for pretty much every country in the world. We have what we call auto-grade quality navigation maps. Those are the maps that are actually going in vehicle navigation systems. And the reason we had to be so good at what we do is because the last thing you want is a consumer, somebody driving a car and driving into a ditch or driving into some place they're not supposed to be driving. So automotive companies put a lot of pressure on us to make sure that we had the best map in the world. And because of that, we can then turn around and license those maps, those GIS databases for enterprise use. So companies like Esri, and you'll see a whole list of those in a few minutes. Then we have, we're a European company. So here it is owned by Nokia. It's a company in Finland, and we use a lot of kilometers in terms of miles. And as you probably know, the US is probably the only country in the world that doesn't use a metric system. So I grew up with a metric system, and I'm struggled trying to live in two systems. It's not easy. So having that on my smartphone and being able to do the conversion is really cool. We also, in addition to maps, point lines, and polygons, we collect real-time traffic data as well as historical traffic information. A lot of processes involved in that as well. I'll talk a little bit about that. We collect public transit, cities with natural guidance. It's a really, nobody can probably imagine what that means. And what it is that usually a lot of GPS systems or in-vehicle navigation systems are going to tell you drive a quarter of a mile and turn right on 42nd, right? What we have done is, as we map the roads all over the world, we identify landmarks that probably will never change. So instead of telling you drive a quarter mile and take a right on 42nd, we're going to tell you drive a quarter of a mile and take a right where you see some landmark. That may be a famous church, a famous museum, or something of that nature. That's what we call natural guidance, which is becoming increasingly very popular. In addition to the fact that all of our data supports dozens and dozens of languages. So you can get a map that is going to talk to you in Spanish, and it's going to tell you whether you want Spanish from Spain or Spanish from Latin America or English from England or English from the United States and that sort of thing. That's the kind of data that we also collect as we build the maps. And obviously we got a lot of street level imagery that we collect, panoramic imagery that we collect with those cars. Please feel free to ask questions. If you have a question you want to ask, please raise your hand. That will make it a little more interactive. So this is the car that I'm talking about. So we got hundreds and hundreds of cars, but this particular type of car, we got about 200 or so. These are the ones that come equipped with the capability to collect street-level LiDAR, street-level imagery, and obviously the mobile LiDAR. We also captured the video and so on. Completely automated. In the old system, with the old systems we didn't have any of that capability. We could collect the video and so on, but we needed a driver and somebody sitting next to the driver on the passenger seat collecting information. Now with the video feed that is totally GPS enabled, we can take that video feed, we can take the LiDAR and the panoramic imagery, go to the production center and actually collect and extract number of lanes, the width of the lanes, how high that bridge is accurately, what's the name of that CVS, and we can actually zoom in and read the hours of operations of the store and things like that. All of that has to be automated because there's no way we could manually process all of that data. So we talk about, we make 2.7 million enhancements to the data pretty much every day. This is what comes out of that card system with the street level imagery and the LiDAR. Basically, this is billions and billions of what they call a point cloud. How many of you are familiar with LiDAR? Okay, some of you. So this is aerial LiDAR. This is terrestrial LiDAR. So it's from the bottom up, which allows us to capture pretty much anything that is going on the ground. And we get excellent panoramic imagery. The beautiful thing about our panoramic imagery is that then you can actually click on that image, and because there is a mobile LiDAR or a LiDAR cloud behind it, you can actually extract a measurement. How high is that building? How wide is that each street lane, and so on. So it's allowing us to be able to capture information. We're releasing this product officially at the Esri User Conference in July in San Diego, and it's a great tool to extract quite a number of use cases from asset management, being able to capture what people call the street furniture, benches, is the sidewalk handicap accessible, the type of trees that you have, light posts and things of that nature. So it's a pretty exciting. We call it reality lens. All right, we're passionate about our customers, and why am I talking about my customers here, or some of our customers here? Because they tell you, they work as a proxy for the type of quality of the maps that we produce. So a lot of names there, but let's do a little exercise. So how many of you have ordered something from Amazon and actually got to your house? All right. How many of you got some package delivered by FedEx or UPS? Guess what? You use, by default, here map content. So all that geocoding and all that accurate routing is determined by the quality of our maps. Let's talk about how many of you have gone and used a Bing map or a Yahoo map or use an Oracle database of Esri software. Many of you. So chances are you're using a here map. How about how many of you on your smartphones use either AT&T or Verizon? Pretty much everyone, right? So chances are you're benefiting by the quality of our data in those products to make a lot of business decisions and so on. And finally, if you have a Garmin device, how many use a Garmin device ever? Quite a few people. If you use an Android phone or a Windows phone, you're probably using some type of here map, and soon to be also on the Apple Store as well. So the rest of them is, you probably recognize a lot of those brand names. They speak to the demands that we need to comply with in order to be successful in this space. At the end of the day, we're not the only mapping company, but at the end of the day, if you can win with a lot of these customers, it's because of the quality of the data. It's a fleet management and logistics. I mentioned how we've been in the automotive industry for 30 years or so. Also in the fleet management system, and there's a lot of, for those of you that work with GIS, there's navigation component, fleet tracking, optimization of routes, safety, and so on. So this just speaks to the type of customers that we have in that industry. And obviously we're very strong in the federal space, pretty much everything you can think of there, and as well at the state level, a lot of wins related to our traffic content and our maps for routing and geocoding. Any questions up to this point? Anybody who works in any of these industries that I just mentioned? What industry are you in? FedEx. Thank you. Excellent. Yeah, every time my FedEx comes to the door, he tells me, I don't have any edits. Because I'm always joking with him. Anybody else? At Esri. Excellent. Thank you. What group are you in? Okay. Yeah. So I spent 15 years at Esri. It's great company. Great. So if you look next time, well, I don't want to ruin the rest of your life, but next time you drive down the street, think about every possible item you could collect. So our company, this is in Chicago, near our headquarters in Chicago, North America headquarters. We collect, for all the type of different layers that we collect, we capture over 400 different attributes. You can sit there and think 400 different attributes. And if you really start thinking about it, pretty much everything you see on that street, right here on this street scene, can be captured into a GIS map. Not that every industry is going to use those attributes, but depending what industry you're in, you use this set of attributes or that set of attributes. So we continue to grow the type of attributes that our customers want us to collect. In many cases, we do a lot of new drives, not because we need to redrive the street, but because they're asking us to collect another type of attribute that we didn't think of before. Does that make sense? So our data is not only rich in point lines and polygons, but also in the type of attribution associated with one of those features. Yes, sir? Yeah. So the question is that automated feature recognition? And the answer is yes. And I'll show you a little video clip of that in a little bit. So just some of the industries we're in: utilities, telecom, retail. I think some of you are in the School of Business, and I'm very excited that some of you are from the School of Business and are here tonight, because I'm here to tell you that now that you're going to go and become a GIS geek, right? But what is nice about you coming out of the School of Business, having an understanding of what GIS can do for you, is that whatever role you go in, it may not necessarily be doing Java programming or building SDKs or APIs. You may be in a managerial position, but you will have with you the technical knowledge of what to ask for. When I started in this industry, we had a lot of managers, and then we had people who were just learning how to use GIS, and all the managers knew how to do is go to that guy or that gal, they'll make you a map. Well, what do you want a map of? Well, I don't know, right? I actually had a friend that got a job as a translator, and that wasn't the actual title, but that's basically what she did. She worked for a financial institution, and she'll talk to the people who were making a lot of business decisions, and then she'll go to the guys who were doing the GIS work and translate the business language into GIS language to communicate with each other. That was 20 years ago. In today's world, a lot of business managers actually understand the power of location as they make business decisions. So when you get out of the School of Business, that's the power, the set of skills that you can bring with you. You're not going to necessarily sit there and build a map or build a database, but you will know what kind of questions to ask of the map, of the database. And if it's not there, what kind of content needs to be collected so that you can make better business decisions. At the end of the day, you know, the old comment of location is still very real today. So these are just some of the examples of the industries we're in. I couldn't not talk about Esri. Esri is a great partners of ours, and they pretty much have it standardized on the here map content across the entire Esri platform, from StreetMap Premium to our GIS Online. They are definitely the world leader in GIS solutions. So you guys are very lucky to live here in Redlands and benefit from that geographical proximity, no pun intended there. So what do we have to do to build the best map in the world? So before we get into that, you can read some of this yourself. I'll give you a couple of seconds to do that. How about this one? So what's shocking to me is things like 91% of businesses suffer from common data error. 91%. 77% believe their bottom line is affected by inaccurate and incomplete contact data. I mean, this is pretty real. I don't know how to ask you if you believe in it or not, but do you believe in this statistics? I actually just made them up this morning. I'm just kidding. But this is very real. It's a real problem, and I think pretty much all of us can think back in our experience up to whatever age you are today, and you could probably relate to some error in some data, either at the bank or in your passport or in your school records, whatever that may be, some type of error. Or there's a charge in your credit card that you did not make, and things like that, right? It's a serious problem. And when I think, particularly when I see those two over there, I think, what if we reduce those by 50%, even 20%? Imagine what how successful those businesses could be if you fix all those errors. Now, the same thing happens in obviously in GIS and so on. So what we try to do is, rather than go out and start building maps, one of the things that we do is that we use a lot of local authoritative sources. So we like to say that we got 80,000 local sources all over the world. We're working, those guys that own their own piece of the map are working at the local level to make sure they got the latest information, all right? We also collect, actually this number is much higher than that, 22 billion with a B probes of data. So these are probes coming from in-vehicle navigation systems, people using their smartphone navigation systems. We do respect all the privacy stuff. We cannot track any of you, anything like that. Lots of companies collecting probe data. That probe data allows us to actually improve the quality of our map, and I'll show you that in a little bit. And then obviously we're making all kind of changes all the time. If we were in a big data conference, I'll be saying, here for sure is a big data company. We deal with lots and lots and lots of data. I'm going to take the next 30 minutes to go over this one slide here. I'm just kidding. But, but basically, you know, you see some of that. So we need to be innovative all the time. We got to hire intelligent people who really know what they need to be doing, and we need to retrain a lot of our employees all the time so they can create great products. We need to be able to serve the local needs. That's where we have people local on the ground, doing the ground truthing, and we need to be committed to quality. And then you go from the way up. We got somebody from Esring Tech Support. We got tech support. We got business partners that help us sell the data and so on. So there's a whole entire sort of building blocks in order to meet the needs of the customer, because at the end of the day, when you go and work, whatever industry you're in, you selling something, you providing a service to whoever the customer is. That customer could be a patient, could be a homeless individual, but it could be a car company, it could be a restaurant company, and that sort of thing. So we have an extensive global R&D presence all over the world. You can see where our production center, we try to locate them all over the world. So we got people working at any given time. There is somebody always working, depending on what time zone they are. In order to be innovative, to be successful, we actually trying to be creative. So that's where we're collecting the mobile LiDAR. We build those cards. When we have a really significant opportunity, we can actually build one of those cards in 4 days. Not the card itself, but the equipment that goes on the card. We can actually build those in-house, ship them, and get them delivered anywhere in the world within 4 days if we need to drive that town for whatever reason that may be, right? Then we collect the probe data, billions and billions of probe data. In addition to that, we have a very intensive community mapping program where communities are coming together to get experience, and they help us improve the quality of the map. We're trying to do our processing faster. So traditionally, we release our map, a new version of our map, on a quarterly basis. So in 3 months, we put new changes, schema changes, whatever you can think could happen to that map, and every 3 months, we ship you a new one. That's what we do with Esri, for example. But we're in 2015. You think every 3 months is good enough anymore? Today, we're on the cloud. There's a new restaurant and people want to see it the next day, right? So we're now if you want and if you can handle it, we can ship you a new map every 2 weeks, a new version. So whatever changes happen in the last 2 weeks, we can get it to you within 2 weeks, maybe even faster if you wanted to. And that's because today everything is about the cloud. When I'm looking at the map, in the case of the Nokia phones, I can actually download the map, but if I'm looking at the map, it's actually looking at somewhere on that map on the cloud somewhere. And we're able to actually pretty much on the fly make changes, refresh the map, and there it is, right? So that's the kind of world we live in today. People want immediate gratification, if you may. And obviously we try, and that's what we call rapid refresh. So if you can handle maps every 2 weeks, we'll get them to you. We actually, on the point data, POI data, points of interest data, we can actually do that on an everyday basis if you want to download the latest batch of POIs that have been verified, for example. And what that means is that somebody calls or say, hey, no, that restaurant is no longer called that restaurant, it's called something else. Thank you. We do believe you, but we're going to verify, right? So we don't ever take a change and accept that change. We like you and we trust you, but we're going to go out and actually verify, do whatever it takes to make sure that in fact that restaurant did indeed the name change or move to a new location, right? In many cases, in actually pretty much in every country in the world, we cannot release a map unless we get approved from the government. Did anybody know of that? A few people I see that knew. So a lot of countries in the world, we cannot officially release a map unless the government says it's okay to produce that map. We got a protocol, disputed territories. And you can probably think of a few countries in the world. Who can give me an example of a disputed territory where two... Sorry? Crimea. How about another one? Kashmir. How about a really big one? Starts with an I. Huh? How about India and Pakistan? Right? And China. All those. So here's what happens. We had 2 versions of the map. Right? So if we go to country A, they approved that border. We go to country B, they approved that border. Obviously, they do conflict. And then we had to be conscious enough that if we're publishing that map in that one country, it's the one that they approve, not the other one. So it can get very tricky, legally very confusing and very complicated. So we had to be very conscious of those things. So in 2012, when we started, we have a bunch of other cards. We got hundreds and hundreds, but the ones with the new system, we started in 2012. In 2013, we bought this company called EarthMine. They bought better technology that we actually had. It's a local company out of Berkeley. Better technology all around. We brought them in. They're helping us improve the quality of the map. We have now over 200 vehicles driving the roads, including emerging markets. So it's a really growing enterprise, growing business, I should say. Why is it important that we use mobile LiDAR and panoramic imagery as part of our processes? It's very important for all these things that are listed there. But one that I would like to point out is this one right here. How many of you have heard of ADAS, Advanced Driver Assistance Systems? Anybody? How you heard about it? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but. Yeah. So people took a vehicle from one location to another. Did the car drive itself? Yeah, right. So that's the holy grail today. It's called connected driving of driverless cars, right? And we're very much in that business. And I'll show you how we have to change our schema to meet the needs of those cars that will drive themselves. Pretty much is happening now. But part of that is something called ADAS. And what ADAS allows us to do is to collect the height, the slope, and the curvature of the road. Why is that important? It's actually that technology is implemented in a lot of cars today. And next time you see that commercial, there's one, I forget which fancy car it is. I don't have one of those. It's the car driving, and what it does is that instead of focusing on the entire car, the commercial focuses on the headlights. Have you seen that one? And what it does is the car is turning, the headlights are turning, and that's because the car knows the road. Listen to what I just said. The car knows the road. The map is in the car, so to speak. So that, and what these car companies are now doing, truck companies, I'm not going to mention any name, but big trucking companies can now put the map, so to speak, in the car, and the car, because the car knows when the slope is coming and what the height is and the curvature is, it knows how to change gears by itself. And it's proven to be a much more efficient than if a human driver was driving that truck, which is resulting in less CO2 pollution, release, saving on cost on the car, saving on gasoline costs, et cetera, et cetera. And for consumers, us driving our regular cars, it can identify, for example, if you're falling asleep. Because what it does, it knows the width of the lanes, it knows the shape of the road, and if you're moving this way, either you're texting or you're falling asleep, or who knows what else you're doing, but it's going to send you some sort of message, right? It's going to vibrate, or it's going to send you a sound or something of that nature. So that type of collection is also critical for the driverless cars, right? So next time you see one of those commercials, remember Milton. I told you about it first, all right? I didn't invent that, but I told you about it first. So it's really exciting, very fascinating. Again, not that you're going to go out and do this yourself, but you got to have an understanding of what the capabilities are. And if you are in school of business or whatever your business you are, you can say, wait a minute, there is ADAS content, and there is real-time traffic, and there is this and that. How can it's like you doing a great potluck. How can I get all those ingredients together and make some great products, create some great solutions? Any questions or comments? All right. So let's talk about driverless cars, connected driving. So in a lot of the maps that you see, we collect the street center line. So you probably, if you're taking a GIS class, chances are you heard the term, well, do you have a center line of the road? Yes, we do. And what we do with our regular maps is that we collect the center lines, and then we add an attribute that says, well, this center line is actually a road that has 3 lanes or 2 lanes, whatever that may be, right? And then you can, with the power of GIS, you can actually make it look like it's got 3 lanes, right? Well, that doesn't work for driverless cars, because it has to know exactly which path it has to navigate to correctly move from the left lane to the right lane, or whatever move it has to make. So what we're now creating is what we call an HD map, a high definition maps. And if you notice here, notice how much detail we actually have to collect. A whole lot of detail. So that the driverless cars, when you hear about all this great technology, it's a combination of a lot of different things, but it does require the best map so that you don't crash that car, all right? So it knows how to take the next right turn or the next exit on the left and whatever that may be. So just, the picture doesn't do justice to what it looks like on the screen. It's actually a 3D map. Yes, sir? Right. So are they in the vehicle, or are they access to the cloud? There is no official driverless car today. There's a lot of commercials, there's test cars, and that sort of. I imagine that in many cases it's probably a combination of both, and chances are it's probably sitting in the car itself. One of the issues is that internet is great when you have access to it, right? How many of you actually lose access to the internet, right? All the time. You go into what we call an urban canyon in New York City, or these massive cities with all these really tall buildings. You lose connectivity, so it's always an issue. So my company is actually probably the only company in the world that produces what we call disconnected mapping. So you can actually, I just went to Seville, Spain, and what I did, I just downloaded the map and I put it on my phone. I get there and it actually knows how to navigate me if I'm a pedestrian or if I'm driving, right? But if I need to actually use the web, which I could too, the server charges going from here to Europe are very expensive, and it doesn't mean you're going to have connectivity all the time. So it's probably a combination of both. As the web becomes much more powerful and everywhere, it's actually going to have an impact on telecom companies. The AT&Ts of the world, and the Vodafone and the Verizon, more sensors, more things, more technology, so that you can always be connected. So I'd just like you to take this with you. Yes, sir. Yeah, so two things. So Microsoft did not buy Nokia. We sold, or Microsoft bought the what we call the devices division. So we no longer produce cell phones or smartphones. That went to Microsoft. So overnight, we went from being a smartphone company to a telecom company, because we still have another division called Nokia Network Services. So we actually help build the 3Gs and the 4Gs and the 5G technology of the world. So no, Microsoft didn't buy Nokia. They wish they had, but no, they didn't. So we sold that division to Microsoft. We still have the Network Services division we have here, which is the mapping division, and we have what we call, oops, I forget the name of the third division, but basically it's the one who owns all the IP, all the patents, and all that kind of stuff. Yes, sir. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it will be. So the Apple is on beta now. This Android was released about 3 months ago, and I think on the first month there were 3 million downloads. It's very popular. So it's available. And what he's talking about is that if you have an Android, you might want to check it out. So you can have a drive. It's called Here Drive. So I can tell it where I want to go, and basically gives me directions. And I can tell if I'm walking, if I'm driving, or if I'm taking public transportation. That's what you're talking about, right? Yeah. So that's now on the Androids, and it will soon be on the Apple as well. Yeah. And it's obviously on the Windows devices. So this is very exciting. This is where the future is going. Please continue doing your GIS. It's really critical. This is going to just become part of that. This is an article that was published on CNN, I think a couple of weeks ago. Let's see if the internet works. But you'll have it in your handout. Obviously, it says Nokia. Of course, they're taking the credit, but it's actually here. Here is paving the way for driverless cars. So, but it talks about the type of technology. Here's a better image. This is the kind of 3D maps that we're building. Obviously, they look different than the maps that we see, that we all grew up with. But basically, there are 3D maps, and he allows all these cars to actually potentially in the future navigate themselves. But anyway, check it out. It's a really interesting article. We do quite a bit of work with CNN, so it's kind of a fun story. All right. So, okay, good. It's working. So I'm showing you here what do 22 billion probes of data look like in a video. So I'm zooming out. I'm changing the scale of the map. And now I'm zooming out of Europe. And we're going to see the entire world in a couple of seconds. This is so, that's what 22 billion probes of data look like. We collect that per month. It's actually more than that, but that's the latest number I had. So it helps us improve the road geometry. Well, how does that do that? How does he do that? I thought you said you already had the map. Well, believe it or not, we actually can take this data and we can actually try to navigate these probes of data, because we get a from and to, and we put them on top of the map, and then we do an overlaid analysis. If there are probes of data navigated on a segment and there is no road underneath, it's because there is a road and we just don't know about it. Or what about that shape of that highway exit? Maybe we're off by 10 feet, for example, or whatever that may be. So it's this kind of information that is helping us improve the quality of the map. Actual physical probe data we collect every second, right? And the other thing that is kind of neat is that because we don't collect any personal information, I like to repeat that, but we actually collect how people brake and stop, brake and go, because that can actually, we turn around and we can tell those cities, here's where a lot of people are braking really hard all of a sudden. Why is that? Maybe there is not enough good signage. Maybe it's a really sharp turn, right? So this is the kind of information we can then provide communities to improve their maps. And the RDMS stands for Restricted Driving Maneuvers. What if that street is a one-way street on our map? Why are there probes going back and forth both ways? Either our map is wrong or they're breaking the law. So you can just sit there and think of every possibility. This is live data that we can look at every minute of the day and help us improve the quality. Jim? Yeah. So the question is, who's providing the data? Pretty much we work with a lot of, you saw all the fleet companies we work with a lot of them. We put sensors in those cards. So we have sensors that are for companies that are doing across the country moving goods. We have them at the regional level. We have them at the local level. A lot of taxi drivers are moving on using some vehicle navigation system or navigation device. Pretty much any vehicle navigation system, every cell phone company that is using some type of map, we collect that information. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is that the same all over the world? The question is, we wish. No, there's a lot of, in the US, we're very spoiled. I mean, I can go to the USGS website or the census website and download a map and a bunch of data. In other countries, doesn't matter to national security. People who work in the GIS industry have done work in some regions of the world that you can imagine where those are. They assign a guard to be with you at all times, every time you work with the map. Nobody can get access to map data. So we're very spoiled here, and we should sort of be thankful for that. Our tax dollars pay for that. So the answer is no. In a lot of cases, there's a lot of restrictions on the data. And so we get involved in a lot of licensing agreements. Obviously, we got to comply because we're European regulations, U.S. regulations, protect identities and all that kind of stuff. So it's fairly complicated. Yes, sir. Yeah. 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 So I cannot speak exactly how we do it. I can tell you that earlier I was telling my colleagues here that in my company everyone has to do ethical training every year. If you don't do ethical training, you cannot show up show up for work. But what does that have to do with security? Well, it has to do everything to do with security because we're collecting a lot of data. You cannot allow that data to be released in any way, shape, or form, either by accident, because I made the mistake of putting it on a flash drive and I lost it at the restaurant, or I dropped it when I was getting into the car, or somebody hacking into the systems and that sort of thing. So that has to do with legal agreements, you name it. But yeah, we had to comply with a lot of regulations, and you'll see some of the standards that we had to comply with. But that's a very valid question. Yes, sir. By the way, this is your last question. 3 is enough. Just kidding. Yeah. So if you're in navigation mode, yeah. So otherwise, it doesn't. Yeah. I'm sure that although if you watch, what are all those police shows? They can track you anyway. So, but anyway, I couldn't think of any names right now. Anyway, this is very exciting. Now, this is your geography test. Which country is this? The United States, right? This is January 1st of last year, 2014. That's 75 million probes. What were those guys doing on January 1st, right? Going to grandma or trying to drive home and so on. So I think I have a pointer here. So you guys are very familiar with this country, right? All right. I'm going to give you $1,000. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to give nothing but a round of applause to whoever tells me which large metropolitan area is that one. I'm sorry? Close. Very good. Everybody, a round of applause. That's fracking. It's oil, gas. They don't even stop on January 1st. So it's, I mean, look at that. Compare that to Denver, Chicago, Boston. That's how many trucks, vehicles are in all those fields non-stop 24 hours a day. So that's sort of the value of just looking at probe data. These are just little dots on the map, and I can look at it and say, what's wrong with the map, right? Here's another one. What the heck is that line? I'm totally with somebody who didn't, somebody who turned their navigation. That's why it shows like that. So, we can't identify who that person was, but anyway. But this is sort of the kind of stuff that you can look at probe data. I mean, it's fascinating. GIS technology has come a long way. We used to digitize maps. How many people have digitized maps here? I knew you were going to say that. I started digitizing maps in 1988. First time I heard of GIS was in the biology department at the University of New Mexico. It was being used to protect Bosque del Apache. Anybody ever been to the Bosque del Apache? We got one person. You cannot die before you go to the Bosque del Apache. I'm getting money from the New Mexico Department of Tourism to say that. No, I'm kidding. It's the most beautiful place on earth. I'm sure there are lots of them, but the wildlife, you can just go and camp or just park your car in the summer. You can see the cranes and the thousands of birds that come in for the night and then take off. It's giving me the chills. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. But it was used for that. And the second application I heard for GIS, because I was working in anthropology, I knew people in archaeology, was actually national security data, protecting archaeological sites. Right? Fascinating. Some of my other favorite things that I heard of was people who track icebergs with GPS, and they sell that data to the shipping company. It's a GIS application. My favorite one of all, like you know how I tell you data changes 2.7 million per day? Data is always changing. Well, the best application you can go in if you don't want to make a lot of changes to your data, cemetery management. Those guys don't move. I'm not lying. There are GIS applications for that, right? So again, I'm just trying to make it fun to give you an idea, but we don't digitize data so much anymore. This is a great way to collect data as well. So Jim, back to your question, feature recognition. We collect all this video, all this LiDAR, and let's see if it works. It's a little jumpy, but you'll get the idea. So this is an example of, we get the video feed, it goes, let's say this is in Fargo, probably. It goes there, technician fits that to the technology that we have developed in-house, and the video starts moving. And as he moves, he finds a sign. He says, oh, that's a sign. Looks like a sign. Let me go ahead and check in my library to see if I find a sign that looks like that one. The best signs to identify, stop signs. Pretty much anywhere in the world you go, they look like that. In Spain, we call them a stop. Not stop sign, but stop sign, right? So, but here's the challenge. It doesn't mean every state, even in this country, is standardized on all the type of signs. Highway signs, because they're federal highways, yes. But you move from one location to another, there are changes. You move from country to country, there are changes. So the video continues running and running, and what it does, it kicks out the ones that it cannot recognize. And it doesn't recognize them because maybe on that day, maybe some teenager, I was never a teenager, never did anything like that, damaged the sign, right? Or they put I don't know, a t-shirt on it, or it rained and it got damaged, or it got mud on it, right? So it doesn't recognize it, so it kicks it out. So as much as we do, Jim, feature recognition, you still need a person to still go back and do some manual checking for those things. But this saves us a lot of time. And we're doing, this is for science, but we're doing this for collecting POI data. What is a restaurant? What kind of restaurant? That sort of thing. All right? Any questions on any of this? All right. So we also have something called Map Reporter. And I think the website is mapreporter.com. It may have changed, but we collect map reports. So people like you, Esri sends us a lot of edits, things that they find wrong in the map, and we actually have automated processes to look at that. And this is a real nice graphic because I've been talking about how good our maps are, but look at all the things that we do find that are wrong in the map, right? There's address changes all the time, you know. Points of interest, POIs, is probably one of the ones that is one of the that changes all the time. Road and road features, even though we drive everywhere, we map everywhere, there's still changes to that road. And this is really critical because we collect real-time traffic information that we turn around and license to companies. Well, as you can imagine, there's an accident. How do we put that on the map? So just a little story here. So Esri, for example, licenses a real-time traffic, right? Now, when anybody tells you it's real-time, don't believe them. It's not real-time. It's near real-time, right? Just imagine you collecting billions of probes of data. People are on Twitter saying, hey, accident on Colton and University Boulevard. We can collect all that kind of stuff. Or somebody's feeding a police car. We actually have people who all they do all day is listen to police cameras, right? Accident here, traffic jam here, just in a police car there, boom, we put that in, right? And it's who can be the fastest. So we send all that information to Esri in an XML feed. They do some processing and they republish it on their own map on a 5-minute intervals, right? And we can probably get a little better than that. But it's a lot of work that actually goes involved in getting it from the time it happened to you actually see it on the map. It's just an amazing process that has to go in there. And if you ever come to our office in Chicago, we got hundreds of people with 4, 6 monitors, and they're watching all those video cameras on the highways, right? So it's an emergency, a huge army of people that are collecting this information every second of the day. All right. So we're trying to improve how fast we can fix all those things and get them out and get you the right information on your cell phones or whatever system you got to access map data. We have grown our community mapping program, particularly in places like Central Africa, which is sort of the forgotten continent in many ways. And what we're doing is work with a lot of universities. We got as many people involved in the community mapping program, 6,000 of them, that are building the map, getting experience, helping us improve the quality of the map, collect that information. They have their own moderation and sort of peer review, if you may. But even then, all those changes we get from them, they don't just go on the map. They still have to go through this process. Okay? We do, you know, you can rate the people building all that content, but at the end of the day, we cannot trust them 100%. We still need to go through validation so it goes correctly, because just think about the liability issues. If something goes on a map and you get into a wreck or something happens and that sort of thing. Yes, sir. Yeah. So the question is, do we use satellite imaging? Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. We use a lot of satellite imaging to help us validate as well. Yeah. So pretty much anything that can help us validate content, from looking at a satellite imagery to looking at local guides. In many cases, we just go and drive there, right? In some cases, you can just pick up the phone and say, are you located where you say you are? We work with a lot of companies. A lot of companies come to me, and this happens because I go to a lot of trade shows, and say, hey, you don't have my XYZ on your map. And I say, well, do you know where they are? And they say yes. And I said, well, do you have a shapefile? A shapefile is an Esri format. Or do you have some type of format with your data on it? Would you like it on the map? And he says, I do. I said, well, give it to me and I'll put it on the map. And it'll be there. You'll see it in at least 3 months. And sometimes it's as simple as that. Obviously, they had to accept, and we sign an agreement, make sure that kind of thing is okay, right? But we do that work with a lot of businesses, collecting the data and put it on the map. There was a question back there before you jump. Yes, sir. How we started using drones? I was going to make a is, I don't know, and I don't know if I could talk about it even if I did. Yeah, drones are really tricky because it's fine if you do it until you screw up. And excuse my French. Last year I went on a cycling tour. We spent 2 weeks riding in Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. We went to Yellowstone, and I was shocked. Everywhere you went in Yellowstone, signs everywhere, no drones allowed. And the story, when you go to the park ranger and you say, what's going on? What do you mean no drones allowed? And the story is a true story. You can probably find it on somewhere on the web. But some German guy was using a drone, and he crashed. His drone crashed, and it wasn't not faithful, but it's the other one where you see all the steam and all the beautiful colors. I forget which particular site is. And it crashed, and he left it there, didn't tell anybody, went back to Germany, and somebody noticed it, they picked it up, and all the video, they were able to identify who it was, and he went to court in Germany, admitted guilt, paid a fine, because you can't send them to jail. There is no law against it yet. So what I mean by that is that all the legalities associated with flying drones are not there yet, just like with driverless cars. States are beginning to plan about that, some more than others. So it's very complicated. Obviously, you saw Amazon wanted to deliver, it's tricky. If it's hard on a busy street when you're walking and you bump into people and that's what, can you imagine hundreds and hundreds of drones flying all over the place? I mean, there's some way, as you can imagine, there's a commercial recently that I saw on the news. Anyway, it's really on TV. I don't think we are yet, but we are obviously looking at all types of technology, anything that can give us, hey, we're a for-profit company, anything that can give us a leg up to be the best, we are. And Jim? Well, we collect the z-value everywhere. So, yeah, so different things of 3D, just to get on the same page. So do we collect a z-value? Yes, so we can get the height of the value. Part of our ADAS data that we collect everywhere is collecting that. We do collect building footprints that we can actually extrude, right? If you use Esri software, you can extrude and build that, create a 3D scene, for example. The 3D map, the high definition map, that's something that we've been doing for 2 or 3 years. I wouldn't know, to be honest with you. I don't know how much we have, but we have to build it. We're going to have to do it all over the world, just like we've done everywhere else. No, but I can certainly maybe, I've been trying to put that on the latest web scene that Esri just launched on our GIS. I think I can put them on there and actually take that map and put them in a 3D scene. The map, if I have enough, and what I can do is, how do I make it a 3D? But maybe if I have enough counts on one location or a certain area, I can make it look like it's a 3D, that sort of thing. Yeah. There are ways that you can, oh my God, God forbid I say manipulate the data, but yeah, there are ways. If you need to take data and represent one thing or another, obviously we know we all can do that. Okay, any other questions? All right, so quality. So this is just a snapshot of all the requirements we have to comply with. So we're constantly having to go through risk certification, all the ISO standards, particularly because we are a European company, but a lot of this applies to the United States as well. So if we don't comply with all those things, obviously that doesn't look good for our map. So when we go into conversations with the strategic companies, they all know what kind of questions to ask. And that's the beauty of you guys being at school here is, again, knowing what kind of question to ask. You're asking the right question, you know how to ask the question to get the answer that you want. So these are the kind of things that we got to maintain up to date. That's just an example. I think I got like 3 hours, so we can go over this. But I'm not going to do that, but just take a quick look at that. You'll see that in your handout. It's very, very complex how the whole quality system works, right? And that's one part. Here's the other part on top of that. So it's a strategic execution, planning and tracking, all kind of controls, real work testing, and then we want to make sure we got customer satisfaction. As like everybody else wants to be on that national report by that worldwide company that says best maps in this vehicle are here maps, you know, and we love to be always on the top 20, right? So So that sort of thing. Um, Real world testing. There's a lot of stuff here. You can look at that. But this one is the most, I think is the most fun, but they had not invited me to go on a real world testing yet. So a lot of my colleagues, they say, hey, next week I'm going on a drive. And what that means in my company is that you were chosen to go along with three other people in the car, and XYZ car manufacturing company or navigation device, and they're going to say, let's see if your map is as good as you say it is. We don't know, we just know where we need to show up. We don't know where they're going to ask us to go. We don't know what they're going to ask us, what kind of maneuvers they want us to do. And these are week-long drives. And we either pass or not pass, right? So we do a lot of that. So sort of think of a final exam. You either know it or do not know it. So it's really exciting. We have 1,900 validations before that map goes out the door. And it's great when we do it on every 3 months, but now we got to do that every 2 weeks, right? I'm not trying to scare you, but it's nice to know that all of this is involved in having a good quality map. Any questions? So here's a really good example. This is the total score. And I'm sorry, it's not so good, but on this particular geography, depending how the customer or how we internally, we actually do a random testing. So it's not always Redlands, California. It's a random system that goes on and say, this month we're going to we give ourselves a grade. So this one, geometry, we got 94.2, speed limit, we did very well, 97%. Z value, Jim, 100%. But it's not like that all throughout, right? It's RDM, restricted driving maneuvers. That one we got right? So our folks in quality are going to look at this and say, well, we got an overall rating of 97.3. Sounds really good. But then we look at this figures right here. We know where the problems are for that geography. So that's going to trigger a series of processes because we want to improve that geography, right? Our goal is always to get to 100%. Chances of ever getting to 100%? No. It's never going to happen, period. No matter how hard you try. It's just impossible. Things are always changing, right? This is very helpful. Any questions? Yes, sir. Oh, well, that's a great question because I think I asked that question when I started the company. Anything above 90 is good. Anything above 95 is completely really cool. Anything above 97.5 is excellent. But I don't think you'll ever. So the reason I'm giving you the 2 is because this is nice, right? But that you really need to sort of open the hood and see, because this could be 3 100s and 5 7s. I don't know if that adds up to 97, but you get the idea, right? Right? So we test ourselves all the time. We do quality control. We do unannounced audits of our own employees who are building maps. You may show up on Tuesday morning, and the next thing you know is the audits are there. How are you doing your work? Not because we're being mean. We're not picking on Jim or Digit. We just want to make sure they're following all the rules, and it's not meant to hurt them or whatever, right? It's just we got to do that. So people are always doing their best. Okay? Because at the end of the day, businesses are failing. That's an extreme, but you make better decisions or not because the quality is not good, or somebody's getting into an accident or not, right? Or FedEx is not able to deliver that product when they say they would. That sort of thing. So this is the question. So based on everything you saw, do we ever make mistakes? How many people say no? God, jeez, I didn't do my job. So I imagine all of you say yes. Do we make mistakes? We do. Really big ones. I'm going to show you a couple of them. We were having a conversation earlier with Vijay, and we're talking about you learn a lot when you do things wrong or when you fail, right? Because you learn how to fix it and move on, right? Here's two really good examples. Here's the first one. We got rid of the ocean in Australia. Oh God, did we get phone calls? It was awful. Where's my ocean? Esri was one of them. Esri Australia who called Esri and said, hey, where's the ocean? That was a big one because we have people working overnight to fix that and get a patch out. Just like get a patch of software, you got to get a patch for data. That was bad. This one is really bad. So can you imagine being a cyclist and or trying to drive and all of a sudden your system is telling you to go this way, but you know better? Yeah. So no, we make mistakes all the time, right? Our job is to minimize the number of mistakes per quarter, and we get reports on how do we do each month. You know, where did we fail? We do it not only with this content, but with traffic. Pretty much every product we have, we're always telling the stories and how, so we can learn from them. All right. Any questions? Yes, sir. What are the legal ramifications of mistakes? So, I worked at Esri for many years, and one of my good friends is Pete Schreiber, who is an IP attorney there, and he did some legal GIS classes in the past, and it's always a tricky issue. No one can claim, a lot of companies will say, the right question is what's your confidence level, right? So what's your confidence level? No one is ever going to tell you 100%. We'll say 98%, 99.9%. Companies say, oh, our servers will be up. We guarantee 99.9% of the time. And when he fails, we say, well, that was part of the 0.1%, right? So it's just complicated, right? Yeah. So we try to make sure that we got the best map. When there is an error, we want to get on it and announce it, let people know. Esri, I keep using Esri because you're here, but we see something wrong, we're telling them right away. We want to make sure that they know as soon as possible. The last thing is you want to try to hide something, and God forbid something bad happens, right? Yeah, we claim it's very high. We say it's very high, and that's as part of, we can demonstrate that we're trying to do our very best to always put the best map out there. But there will be this, and we just get on it right away. We let people know, and we tell them what we're doing and when it's going to be out, and we're going to get it out, and we had to work 24 hours a day. By the way, I was joking. You can ask another question. You already have. Any other questions or comments? All right, so I showed you that slide before. If you walk away with something tonight is, we've been doing this for 30 years. We're always trying to be innovative. We're trying to learn, use the latest technology, learn as much as we can to get the best technology, automate as much as possible. The internet's changed a lot of things. We gotta get those maps as fresh as possible. When that bridge in Minneapolis collapsed, we were probably the only company that immediately made that change on our online platform, on our online map, right, and notify everyone. We do that all the time. You gotta be as fast as possible, right? Consistent specification worldwide. That applies even at the enterprise level in your company. If you're using a map in this department, but you're using a different tab in another department, guess what? Those maps are not going to line up. They will be, it's just they're not. So consistent using the same map across the organization, and if you're a worldwide company, you want to make sure you have a map in which the specifications are consistent all throughout, so that when you're building GIS solutions, you don't have to think, oh, wait a minute, in this country you have to do something else, in this country you have to do something else. No, you do it one and you replicate it over and over in every country. And we got folks that own their own piece of the map all over the world. We got cars driving and that sort of thing. So in summary, we try to have the best content. And here's an interesting thing: best content and best map. And in my company, there's a difference between having a best map and best content. So a best map is obviously the GIS map, but the best content may be real-time traffic, right? Because it's not necessarily a map; it's content that goes on top of the map, that sort of thing. We're always trying to be as creative as possible, and always try to improve on the quality of our map. We do a lot of real-world testing. We test in ourselves. We audit ourselves. We try to create the best map. So what I'm hoping is that next time you go on that trip, please don't talk about the car or the trip. Please talk about the gasoline, all right? So that's what I wanted to do. So, yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is, what kind of jobs are available there? Lots of jobs. And when I started in this business in 1998, the number one requirement is that, one, I was crazy enough to, I actually volunteer. I had a job and I went part-time and volunteer at an organization. It's changed name, but in the old days it used to be called Technology Application Center out of the University of New Mexico. At the time was one of 6 NASA technology exchange centers in the U.S. And I would knock on the door and I said, I'd like to work for free. And they said, sure, come in and work, digitize for free. And after the 3 months, they loved my work, they hired me. You got to be able to make that kind of sacrifices and investments of that sort of thing. But back then, if you know how to spell GIS, you got a job in GIS. And it's kind of a joke, but basically, that's all you needed to know. And in those days, all of you, I imagine, here use ArcGIS or Esri tools, right? In the old days, I don't know if anybody here will remember that, I used to take the manuals home. And I don't know if anybody, but Esri used to ship the software, and it was 2 boxes, and when you put them on your shelf, I don't know that anybody has shelves in their offices anymore, it was this much. And I would just start with A, Command A, and memorize them. And it was, they said, build command. Build has an input coverage, and an output coverage, and a resolution. And I just memorized them. That's what I did. That's how I learned GIS, right? Next thing to know, I was an expert and I was teaching GIS classes out of the geography department. But those were the easy days, not anymore. Today, a lot of the jobs in the GIS industry are either going to be, you're going to be a programmer, and you need to know a multitude of programming languages. You need how to build APIs and SDKs, and half the time we don't even know what those means, but we know what they are. And that's what I was saying. You don't need to be the person that is going to go out of the school here and do that job. You could if that's what you want, and there are some people who are really good at that. But if you're studying business, business is the holy grail of GIS in many ways. Why? Because GIS, even though there's been applications in the retail and finance and insurance and reinsurance, is still a growing industry, right? And in a lot of cases, it doesn't need that you need to know how to do something. It goes back to what I told you before. You just need to know what the GIS system is capable of doing, and you need to know what questions to ask of that system in order to achieve bigger sales, or to assign the right salesperson to a sales territory. So not all the jobs had to be that GIS, you getting your hands dirty with the software. They can be you know what you need to ask, and you can, I mean, there's so many jobs out there. I don't have a degree in GIS. My background is in urban and regional planning. I never practiced that. However, what I learned in planning, because planning is a lot about geography, helped me get into this job at Esri and do well at Esri for all those years, right? I'm a sales guy. I do sales, marketing, business development. And a lot of that requires that not only had to be good at doing sales or doing marketing or business development, but I got to be able to talk the talk. I got to be able to sit down, and I can probably, for the most part, sit down with anybody in any industry, have a conversation. But I also go back to my first day of planning school, where my professor said, here's the thing about being a planner, is that you know a lot, but you don't know all the answers. And when you don't know all the answers, don't try to make it up. Just say, hey, I don't know, I'll come back to you, right? So we're moving into the whole world, reality lens and mobile LiDAR, and I never worked with LiDAR before, but I'm studying hard to try to learn the terminology and all what that means so that I can keep up with that. So it's kind of a convoluted answer, but there's a lot of jobs in GIS, but they don't mean that you had to be in the GIS department. You can be in finance, you can be in accounting, you can be in retail and having to make some decisions as to where that store is going to be located or which ones need to be closed or whatever. You are actually doing, Jack will be proud of me if I said that, you'll be doing GIS without saying you're doing GIS. You know what I mean? But, I mean, let me just turn that around. Anybody who want to say something, help answer that question? Come on, somebody. How many of you are doing GIS today as part of your daily work? FedEx? So you do some type of GIS. What do you do? Geocoding. Absolutely critical. You got to know where you're starting from and where you're going to. And you may be doing an application where it's not just one truck going to 20 locations. It might be 10 trucks going to 100 locations. So that's optimization. That's a different type of geocoding. There's another question that that is in Texas. Yeah. That's a great answer, and it's good because of the following. In old days, just a little bit of history here, you know, you work at Esri, you learn how to use the software and all that stuff. A lot of the sales guys in the early day were geographers, guys who graduated from geography or planning. It doesn't mean we're good salespeople. And what did Esri do as it grew and matured as a company? They actually went out and hired real salespeople. It's easier to take a salesperson and teach them GIS, how to talk their own business from a geographic perspective, than to take a geographer and turn into a salesperson. It happens all the time, but they go out and hire industry experts. So that's a good word for you to remember, industry expert. What are you good at in your industry? And give it that right flavor of the map of the geography associated. Every business decision we make, for the most part, has some geographical component. From where do we go for breakfast today to where do we go on vacation? Where's that ATM? You know, what you can think of it, right? So industry experts are critical pretty much today, because chances are there's already somebody doing GIS. A lot of jobs, they know they need that GIS. They may bring you in, not to run the GIS, but you know what it needs to get acquired and what kind of level expertise needs to be collected within an agency or company to build a great GIS systems to support the business decisions of the organization. So I guess what I'm saying is, don't think that you're going to get out of school and you're going to work with necessarily the software. Just know what questions to ask, how to ask them to get the right answer. Okay. Any other questions or comments? So I tried to make data exciting. Data is boring, but you just need it. So thank you very much. It's great to be here. And I'm available if anybody wants to come up and talk. Thank you.
So I just wanted to thank our speaker today for thoroughly insightful and oftentimes entertaining, humorous presentation.
I tried.
I know that was a lot of information to process, but the Milton's presentation is actually up on the center's website already. And if anyone wants to take a further look, please feel free to do so as part of your coursework or even otherwise. I do have a token of our appreciation for you. This is a little bit of
Thank you.
memento, so thank you again.
Thank you very much. It's got my name and everything. That's great. And it's actually the Nokia color, more or less, so I appreciate that. The company is very picky about the right color, so thanks very much. I really
You're very
appreciate it.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes, sir.
That's very nice.
So before we wrap up today, I just want to say thank you to all of you for coming out and attending the event. I know several of you will be heading to class now, and I hope that you have a chance to reflect on Milton's insightful presentation, probably during class or even after class. Our next speaker event, so please mark your calendars for Wednesday, April 8th. It's going to be another evening event, and we are expecting to feature Dr. Peter Keenan, who is going to be a guest from University College Dublin. So again, I think we have a little bit of dessert coffee, so if you have the time, please stick around, network with your colleagues, with your friends. Thank you very much again, and have a wonderful rest of the evening.